All right, we're going to get started, everyone. Thank you for coming out to the last session on the last day. Congratulations, you've made it. My name is Tim Apnell. I'm going to be the speaker and crash test dummy today on this topic. With that, I'm going to just cut into this. It's always fun doing a live demo, especially on the last day, so I'll give myself some time for this. But first, a little bit about me, really quick. As I mentioned, I'm Tim Apnell. I'm the product manager, or a product manager. I'm not the product manager, at Ansible. I've 25 years of corporate experience, various ways, shapes, and forms before I came to Ansible. I'm a jack of all trades. I've been working with Ansible a long time. I've only been with the company about a year, but I have been a contributor before Ansible was even a company. I think it dates back to, I believe I traced it to 0.5. If you've ever used the synchronize module in Ansible, it's all my fault. I should ask, how many people here are Ansible users already? Okay. About half to two-thirds. So hopefully I show you something that is of use and interest to you. I hope so. That was one of my goals here. We'll see. So if you've used the synchronize module, it's all my fault. That was one of my major contributions to the Ansible code base before I came to Ansible. And before that, and there's a good reason I mentioned this, is I was managing a testing and automation team at a large bank in America here, and was an Ansible customer and user before I went and joined Ansible. And I was in our professional services team, and I've recently moved over to product management. The reason I mentioned that is that one of my last projects at this bank was researching and prototyping a metric system for trading systems. I left it as a prototype. I don't know what happened to it since then, but it got me really thinking about, since I was using Ansible a lot in my daily job, my team was using it in a daily job, and then I had this other work, and the metrics got me thinking about how these two cross paths and how they're similar and how they complement each other. So I've been talking about it a lot to people, just water cooler type things, or as it came up. And I thought, well, maybe doing a talk on this and organizing my thoughts would get it across better. I could share it with other people. And it would also, I wanted to evolve and refine my thinking on the topic. So what I've come up here is a proof of concept. It's been very interesting and instructive to me. I think it's something useful. I hope by the nature of you coming here, you are interested in it, and I hold your interest in it. So what I'm going to be showing you is, first talking about what is this metric-driven development, just some of the concepts and some of my own observations on it, and then to do a live demo of some of the stuff I put together in doing my proof of concept and kind of figuring out what is this and how does it work together and where are the rough spots. As I expected, or anticipated, I should say, I found a lot of dark corners and messy areas that could use refinement, but I still think the idea is valid. And I really think that there's something there, and that while there's a lot of room for improvement, there's also a lot of value in this type of thing. So what is metric-driven development? Well, first we need to understand what are metrics. And they are a quantifiable measure of any component or process whose change is of interest to your business. I'm going to point out ahead of time, and a bit of a spoiler to some of what's going to follow, is the word business. And the reason, not that I know this is a technical conference and we're all technical people, but the reason I pointed out is that this is what makes metrics a little bit different than your standard just statistics that you'll see there. Metrics can be not just the CPU load or the amount of memory your system is using, but how many signups are you getting for your site? How many people ran into an error filling out a form on your site? or how many new leads did you generate? These can all be mixed together with those things that we as technologists think of. So what is metrics-driven development? Well, that's the practice of where these metrics are used to drive the application development. So this thinking is, if you've ever heard of test-driven development, TDD, it's sort of an outshoot of that sort of thinking. But instead of where, and by the way, these TDD and MDD can be used together. They're not mutually exclusive ideas. But the thinking of it was that, well, in test-driven development, you write your test first, see it fail, then you start writing code until that test passes. You find a bug, something you missed, you write a test for it, and then you keep running it through these type of tests, and that feeds into continuous integration, continuous development, deployment, and agile methodologies. Metric-driven development falls under that category, but here you're using these metrics that you're measuring, the historical log that you keep of them, to see where things are going. So, as I said, it was inspired by that line of thinking. So by no means was it this huge revolutionary thing, but maybe an evolutionary thing. I think the group that started to popularize this thinking or this way of doing things was Etsy. I posted this blog post that a lot of people that talk on this topic will refer to. This was the first one I saw on the topic that got me thinking about it. And they even admit in that, I know the CTO of Etsy at the time came from Flickr, and Flickr was doing things way back in the day that was, you could say, was early forms of metric-driven development. So, yeah, that's the general gist. And let's dive into that a little bit further, which is, why do I want to care about metric-driven development? What is metric development? We talked about that, but why? And in a word, it's really about quality. It's the quality of your software meeting the standards that you need to meet for your business, for your operations, for every code commit that you're making. Is it meeting the quality, and can you prove that quality? So the benefits are that, well, let me take a step back before I start talking about this. I ran a test automation team, and I worked very closely with the QA team at the bank I was at. No matter what we did, it seemed that there would always be something that would happen, that no matter how much testing we did, that always seemed to slip through. Some type of magic combination of components and systems and infrastructure and the right market data storm or really aggressive trader that sent in some nutty order to the system that we would miss, and then there would be an outage, and then everyone would be left scratching their head, or there'd be a degradation in the response time of the systems. Everyone would be left scratching their head, like, how did this miss testing, and what happened, and now how do we figure this out, sort of thing. So because of that, it would slow down the cycles and releases, because everyone would be trying to test to try to avoid that. And that's not to say that this allows you to skip testing. But what it does let you do is more aggressively push out those changes with a certain amount of confidence, because you're able to monitor and analyze what is happening on these systems. And we're talking not just about what happened in a problem. I just talked about an outage that happened, but also proactively, like, hey, did that commit I just make, that new version we rolled out, is that eating memory faster than I thought? Or has the response time gone down? Or are we seeing a lot more login failures? Did we do something to our UI that now is causing a problem here? Have we redesigned our website that people aren't finding our contact me form or contact us form? So it's a much broader thing than the typical type of monitoring and stats that we take from there. So we can roll things out more aggressively with confidence, because we can see it almost in real time. What was the effect of that happening, and see how that compares to things over time to see, are we heading in the right direction? So it works as an early warning system of problems. but it also can provide meaningful data points to your business. A key thing that if you look at metric-driven development that gets discussed a lot is the idea of it communicating. Communicating not just to your ops team, but communicating to other parts like development and business. So, I mean, I love this quote, and it really is true and really applies well to metric-driven development. It's, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And really, when you think about it, a lot of people develop apps and they're making commits, and as long as it passes its unit tests, they're like, yes, done. And dev goes on. But did that change, did those changes actually move you in the direction that you wanted to? Did it improve the quality? Did it achieve the goal that you were that you were shooting for in page response time or memory consumption or whatever it is that you're measuring? You know, metrics is a very broad thing. So, I bring up this chart. I mean, I know Venn diagrams are overused, but it really illustrates the difference. One question I get asked sometimes when I start talking about this is, isn't this just monitoring? And I've already been alluding to the fact that, or anticipating that question coming from the audience. When we talk about monitoring, typically we're just talking about the ops here. The ops team is looking, they have Nagios or something running, and they're looking at things that are, they're just looking for things to go wrong. Did it run out of memory, or the server flatlining, the network I/O card, something like that has flatlined, running out of disk space, or something like that. They're just watching for trouble. And in my experience, a lot of times the ops people don't know what is running in the app. How's the app actually performing? I mean, okay, they can see the process CPU cycles, but do they know other things about the nature of that app? They're not the people to look at that. Dev, in the meanwhile, kind of threw it over the fence to them, and it went into production, and then they're back off looking. Metric-driven development brings all those together, and it also lets the business take a look at it and say, is our app doing what we are expecting it to? I think a great example of this, I saw a talk from, it was Squarespace. I was in their office, and they are big proponents of this type of thing. They were measuring things like when they run an ad, what is the effect of the new signups, and also who hit certain key pages on their site at all those times, so that they could look at that and correlate those metrics against how their ads were running, and see that also against things that were coming from their system, like page views or people requesting more information or asking for support, things like that. So this to me is what really kind of separates the two. I mean, I'm not saying that they're totally different by any means, but it's sort of a shift in thinking. It's more about being holistic. It's more of a holistic way of thinking. It's about being more proactive in what's happening on the system. So, all right, so where does automation and DevOps fit in here? So there's a few ways, but I generally focused my POC, I tried a few, but on this scenario here, we got some metrics and we see some type of change in activity. And you're asking yourself, what just happened here? Well, a playbook ran, or I just deployed a new version of my app. Maybe that explains that. So now you can rest assured, like, okay, without having to dig, you would know then what's going on here. So this is the one scenario I looked at. So, so one of the key areas that I was trying to implement my proof of concept is the ability to let some Ansible report when a playbook runs or when a key event happens, like a service got restarted or a new application was deployed. Got some of this done in what I have out there. Some other things I considered and started to play with also was the ability to profile your plays and your tasks so that you can, treat Ansible just like another application, what's taking the longest and things like that. And a third one I really wanted to get to for this in demo but didn't was the ability to react on those metrics. The idea being there's a tool, if anyone read the abstract, there's something called capacitor that I was hoping to work with that can look at metrics, and when a certain range or threshold is breached, it can do something. And that do something in my head was, oh, I could run a playbook to take corrective action or to spin up more instances and deploy my app out there. Fortunately, didn't get to that one. Probably don't even have enough time to demo that in addition to what I have planned, but we'll see. So this is some of the ways that I saw that these two areas kind of complement each other and in some ways overlap a little bit. But before I could develop that or show anything, I needed a metric collection stack to prototype on and an application. So I thought, oh, okay, I know a good tool that can help me do that because, you know, hokey workflows and ancient shell scripts are no match for a good automation tool, kid. And by the way, Dahan shot first. Does anyone get that inside joke? I said that internally, and some people really laughed at it. The original author of Ansible is Michael Dahan. So anyway, trying to keep you awake here. So let me do. I'm going to now, you know, with a bit of, with no regard to my self-preservation here, I'm going to do some live demos of rolling out a test application, rolling out a metric stack, and then showing, I'm going to make an update, a bad update, a fake bad update, and show how it marked that and how the metrics reacted differently so you know someone just made a bad commit or a commit that degraded the quality there. So I'll be playing a bit of like Evel Knievel over the falls of Caesar Palace here, I guess. Before I do that, well, no, I got time, so I'll wait. I'm going to talk about what I set up here in my proof of concept. Okay, so we all know that you know, social media is dead, and 8-ball media is the new hotness and where all the unicorns are at. So I created a magic 8-ball application here. It's just a very simple, in all actuality, it's a simple Flask application in it there. And I have 3 of them running behind an HA proxy that I'm going to set up. I haven't run this yet. I did provision my servers ahead of time so you wouldn't have to sit through all the time waiting for Amazon to get those up. But so it sets up an HA proxy, sets up my apps, and I have a controller in the back that'll be running Ansible. I'll be running Ansible from to deploy all that out front. So that's my app. In order to collect these metrics then, to roll them out, I'm using a few tools here. I am putting on something called Telegraf. It's made by a company called, it's an open source tool, but there's a company behind it named InfluxDB. This thing, has anyone ever used collectd or heard of it at least? Okay. Telegraf maps pretty well to collectd, more or less. I'm sure if the InfluxDB people were here, they would go, no, but you get the idea. It has some services similar to another tool called statsd, which is very popular, and that's actually something that came out of Etsy that I mentioned. If you go back to that URL, they're talking about statsd there. So I have Telegraf on my 8-ball nodes, collecting what's happening there at the system level. Those are then reporting things back to InfluxDB. InfluxDB is a time series database. So we all know databases. What makes InfluxDB somewhat unique is that it is optimized for taking in many data points that are based on time, possibly crunching those numbers, and then also managing the retention of those numbers. So if you want to keep 30 days, you can tell it only keep 30 days, and when something hits 31, the system automatically flushes it out of the way. Another similar tool that you may have heard of is Graphite. There's also Prometheus is another time series database system. I found Graphite, I tried working with it, and while it's Python based, I'm a Python guy. It was really a pain to install. It also doesn't scale as well as InfluxDB does. So when I was at my previous job, when we started off with Graphite and just said, this is really frustrating, and oh, look at this thing, tried it out, and we've liked it a lot. We liked it a lot better that I've stuck with it here. So Telegraf talks to InfluxDB. Since they're done by the same organization, they kind of really, really easy to do. And then I'm using Grafana down here, also running on my controller. Grafana is a separate tool, separate organization, also open source. It is a dashboard application that can plug into many different types of data sources. InfluxDB and Graphite are some of them. Elasticsearch is another that they support, things like that. And what it lets you do is visualize what's happening and do it in a pretty much real-time way. So we'll show you what that is, what that looks like there. All right. I think that pretty much covers what I need to tell you about what you're about to see to get a picture of what I'm trying to build here. Let me just 1 second to set up. Yeah. All right. Okay. You know what? I'm going to turn mirroring off here. This will make it easier so I don't have to turn to the side. Or, sorry, I'm turning mirroring on. It was off. Mm-hmm. Oh, now I lost my terminal screen entirely. There it is. All right, great. All right. 1 second to get my bearings. Do that to make it a little larger. Okay, so the first thing I did was, like I said, I already, not having you wait through it, I already provisioned those boxes, but I haven't done anything on them yet. They're pretty much doing, right now, nothing other than sitting there. Just to prove it here, this is the IP of one of the HA proxies. You see, nothing is coming up, so nothing up my sleeves here with that. So let's roll out. Let's take a look very quickly at my 8-ball service. So let me see, what can I do? What can I do? So I did a couple of things here. I have an HA proxy playbook that rolls that out. I'm just using a role that I built in there just for organizational purposes. It's right now embedded. You know what? Actually, I just realized I totally blew over here on you. Is what I'm showing you are at these 2 locations. Anyone that has a machine, I've pushed to my machine already, or I've pushed to my account those 2 places there that you see. Yeah, it's readable enough. So the ability to build out the metric stack that you're going to see is under that one, and then the 8-ball service app is in its own separate one. Also, I've posted here, that's the URL of our HA proxy. If anyone wants to bang on the app, once I get it up and running, feel free to do that. It'll just give us more metrics to see bouncing around. So, all right. So, sorry about that. Forgot I wanted to put that up there. I can put that back up in a little bit. So I have an HA proxy. I have an app one. Again, I used roles, so that's not terribly exciting. Well, I'll wait till I do the rolling update to show you more of that. So let's roll that out. What just happened there? Oh, this would be a fine time for the Wi-Fi to cut out on me. Yeah, exactly. It's like Evel Knievel tripping in the bathroom before the jump. Wow, yeah, that totally crapped out on me. All right, let me try a new tab. No. Oh, I forgot the IP address of also my controller box. What's that? Yeah, I had it in the tab, and then I lost it in the history here, I think. I think that's it. I'm pretty sure. We'll find out once I get on there. Yeah, that's weird that it did that to me. Or, well, maybe say slightly concerning. All right. So I already installed Ansible ahead of time. I've also configured it for the static inventory of the stack that you saw up there. At this point, let me see. I'm going to run setup, and I've also created a file with the parameters. I can go back over this stuff, but I didn't want to go too deep and then run out of time. So I'm going to run this. Yep, fire away. Oh, right. Web group is undefined. Hold on. Oh, the joys of live demos. If you have any questions while you're asking? All right, I think I know how to work around what I did here. Oh, this is going to be really frustrating. Oh, I know what I did. I'm an idiot. Sorry. It's the end of the conference time. Forgot the @ in front of my file. All right, there we go. So we're running this playbook now. It's collecting facts. It's setting up the HA proxy. It is installing it. Setting up EPEL in this case. All right, installing a bunch of common packages right now that we're going to need for our 8-ball application. So it's going to be Nginx, WSGI, or UWSGI. I think a couple Python modules, not too many. Or actually, I think that's another task coming up here. Yes. Yes, that's in the next grouping I'm going to do. Right now, I'm just rolling out my app. Yeah, so this is all stuff for the 8-ball service I wrote. So I needed a web server. I need Git for this demo on the machine. I put pip on the Python developer tools, GCC, which one of the Python packages, the UWSGI requires compilation. So I needed those on here. So we see those getting rolled out. Oh boy. What did I do? Oh. All right, I made a mistake. So let's fix that and then show how we can rerun this. All right. I forgot to push my branch. I set up a demo branch for this. Where'd that tab go? All right. So I did that on purpose to show the idempotency and desired state handling of Ansible. So we see now we're getting a lot more green and things are flying by a lot faster because of the work I'd already done. It just picked up all that. So that worked out for. So we see it installed the 8-ball, got it set up as a service, enabled the service. It picked up the fact that it was installing this stuff new for the first time, so it does a restart of Nginx and a restart of the 8-ball service. So now, to show what that did, if I refresh that, come on, yay, hear me baby, hold together. All right, so if we keep hitting this, we see we keep getting different 8-ball things. I even put a little thing on the bottom that shows different nodes. It's kind of off the screen here, which, let me see if I can pull this up. There you go. If you look at the bottom, you can see it telling me it's going to different nodes. Another reason I did this, I thought it would be a really good exercise to teach myself how to do HA proxy and rolling out to multiple servers. So our app's been rolled out in a matter of, well, with a couple typos, matter of minutes. So let's keep moving on here. Oh, don't want that. I want to. So now I want to go into this the Ansible MDD, and that is the InfluxDB Grafana Telegraf setup and wiring it all together here. So let's see what I have here. This is a pretty basic playbook. I started creating a bunch of roles for organizational purposes. I didn't quite get them done and pushed out, but I did get one for the Apple stuff, and there's also one out there for just a simple, basic Telegraf. Hope to do a more sophisticated one. Again, with those URLs I gave you of my repos, you'll be able to trace and find these, but also if you search on that in Galaxy, you'll find it. I'm also, let's see, what else am I doing in here? Just a debug message which won't show up because I'm using the verbosity param, which I highly recommend anyone that didn't see my best practices. That was one of the things I talked about, is keeping debug messages out and using this new param that we added in 2.1. So anyway, so it's a basic rollout using our roles. We can go over this again if I get through this alive. There we go. And it is set up, and again, instead of watching me try to type all the variables I need to feed in, I put it in a file. This time I will remember to put an @ symbol in front of it so it knows that's a file. Let's see, let's fire that off. So the first thing that's happening is it's going out and installing InfluxDB and Grafana on the control node. So the other nodes don't need it. We all need a centralized place. So it's flying through, setting up the repo, figuring out what version it is, putting in the Python client for talking to InfluxDB, things of that nature. Oh, joy. Yep, I know why. I forgot to update a file. I have an explanation for this that we'll show in a minute, but how this got in. Again, showing the intelligence and desired state capabilities of Ansible. Fixed that little disconnect. Yeah, so now at this point, InfluxDB and Grafana have been installed on my controller and wired up to each other, and it's going out to all my web nodes, my 8-ball nodes, and installing Telegraf and getting that started and running. We see because it installed it for the first time, it did a restart and things like that. So at this point, I should have a whole metrics system set up across my stack. So let's go over here. The first thing, let's see if Grafana came up. Oh, come on, man. You can do it. You can do it. Oh, man. There we go. It's coming across slowly. I see it's moving there. It just saw I need to log in. Yeah, I don't know. The Wi-Fi is, you would think by this point in the conference with a lot of people already going home, it wouldn't be so, I don't know if they, I don't know. Anyway. So, all right. So we see Grafana is up and running. Just do that for now. And very dull because we haven't really done much of anything. But at this point, I do have this dashboard. Now, this is one of the dark corners I hit in it. As I was working on this, I found like a lot of rough edges and things to work on, and I started trying to address it. I really found automating Grafana right now really hard. It's a really cool tool and has like a ton of potential. I could have spent, weeks just working on and playing with all the different things you can do with Grafana. But when it came to trying to automate it, it was kind of a bear. And one thing broke on me, which is the dashboard kept mangling my my query. So I need to go in and fix that. So the way we do that, let me see here. Actually, I need to go down here. Yeah, so like this is one thing. It says training not found, but I have something called training. So, like I said, this is a prototype, so it was good to learn what's going on. Why is it not? All right, give me 1 second here. Oh, I think I might know why. Well, this is fun. The UI is supposed to give me a list of fields to put in here right now. And it does not seem to be connecting to that. See something here. Weird. Yeah, I wonder if InfluxDB did not come up. I'm worried about Grafana, and that happened. InfluxDB itself to set up was really pretty easy. Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes wiring it up to get Grafana to talk to InfluxDB and to tell all the telegraphs to feed into this one, to feed into the right table. Oh, this is going to be a real bummer if this one doesn't. All right. Yeah, it's not. I just typed in the word service and it echoed back S. So I don't know why this is dragging so much right now. I'm thinking I'm going to get booted off here again. You watch. Yeah, I do not know. This might explain a bunch of things. Is anyone else having trouble online? It is really slow? Okay, so it's not me. I'm not making this up. Thank you for vouching for me, sir. Yeah, it's... Are they really? I don't know. I'm... Oh, this is going to be such a bummer. What's that? Yeah. I can't even get to... I was trying to see what the... there we go. So there it... Interesting. Oh. Yep, thank you. Oh, yes. Yeah, good idea. Yeah. That's weird. My colleagues did one today, and they recorded their demo, and I was like, oh, cowards. And now I'm wondering if that was smart. All right, so now so now Grafana's telling me, yes, that was working. We're hooked up, so let me go back to that test dashboard. All right, there we go. Now it should let me edit it, what's going on in there. There we go. That was what I was expecting to happen from the get-go. Yeah, so like this is a weird thing. I created one called training, and the dashboard doesn't recognize it, and it gives me this training not found. Yeah, I wasn't able to track that down. This was what it was supposed to do there. So I'm going to just fix these by hand. Yeah, they are. The problem I was running into is the JSON file that used to work for me in a previous version of Grafana broke, and it's not giving me any type of error why. And it actually even dies silently, which was even more frustrating. It's not even telling me why. And I just didn't have the time. So anyway, so now we see we're back to, so this is Grafana. It's right now we're showing the load that Telegraf has been measuring and sending into InfluxDB, that it is pulling out and drawing on the screen the load that each of those are under. This is kind of dull. Granted, it was a demo. So I cheated a little bit, and I installed another version of Grafana elsewhere, and then had a lot of fun playing with it ahead of time. And I'm going to work from this one now. What I would have hoped to do is to have dashboards that as part of my automation flow would get installed. And like I said, I ran into so many errors with it, I had to finally just say, all right, I got to set this aside. But it's definitely, I think the tool has tremendous potential. The automation part of it still is a lot of rough spots to it. I also put in graphs here for 8-ball metrics. So in my app, I've created the ability for it to report to InfluxDB how the app is doing. In this case, I just did a simple response count and a response time. So, you know, what's the speed that we are responding to? So I think if we start, I probably should have started this sooner. All right, where is it? I'm going to put some load on it. And thank you, oh, where'd he go? Damn. A colleague of mine was just in there. He showed me this tool, Watch, which is lovely for putting a system under load. It can't go too fast, so I'll just open up a bunch of terminals here. So what Watch is doing is it's looping through curling our HA proxy every 0.1 seconds. And is that going to stall? Oh no, I thought for a second it stalled. Whew. Starting to sweat this thing now. So let's go back. Come on. Well, we see the load went up. I need to debug. Why is it not? Oh, I know why. Or I have a guess why. Yep, I made a slight mistake here. I was using my inventory. I named one HA proxy and then said only install HA proxy there. So, yeah. That's not the one I wanted. All right, the HA, the 8 ball is going to come down for a second. Should have actually run the rolling update book I have here, but this will run faster, I think. All right, there we go. All right, so I had a feature switch for turning on the metrics that I forgot to turn on. So that's why those two graphs are reading. We see now that they ran. We saw a huge spike in activity. That was me running the playbooks on those machines. So I'm inadvertently showing my own demo. We also see now that we're getting metrics coming across with what's been happening. All right, so I got those two things finally up and running. Let me see, how am I doing on time? Well, we'll hurry through this. So this is a bit of a contrived example, but going back to some of the examples I gave about metric-driven development having to do with quality, all that, I'm going to do something where I purposely degrade the 8-ball app. It's not going to break it, but it's going to slow it down. So imagine someone where you're pushing stuff through CI/CD type of stuff, you do tests and things, but someone makes a mistake or does something and inadvertently slows down the app. What are you going to do here? Oops. So I'm going to go into my code here. So this is the secret code to my 8-ball app. And actually, this is probably... Oh, yeah, there we go. Put that in there. So I'm just going to put a sleep statement in there that randomly adds some latency to it to simulate a bad commit. So... all right, so we pretend we had a CD pipeline. Developer made their commit that was of questionable quality out there and pushed it out. So what happened now? So what I have also here, we don't want our server to go down. People need their 8 balls after all. So what I did was I created a one of the very common usages of Ansible is the ability to do what's called a rolling update, the ability to, instead of working on your entire inventory at once, take them out in batches. So in this case, I'm using serial 1, which means I'm only taking one 8-ball out at a time. And I am also telling HA proxy when I do that, hey, I'm taking this node out for now, so please don't send it traffic. Update the 8-ball, and then go and pull it out, or put it back in the HA proxy pool, before going back and working on the next one. Before I do that, though, I know there was something important. Oh, yes, the whole point of the demo. That was always a good idea. So let me do. So what I'm doing is I'm putting I created, so in order to do this, I don't have anything up there. So the whole idea of the demo that I was trying to do is the idea of reporting when Ansible does something to the metric system, so that as you're collecting the metrics, you know, oh, at this point here, Ansible did something. So in this case, I'm going to try to capture when a playbook ran, so you know when that play happened, so that if there's a change in your metrics or something, that you can understand that without digging further. The other is to capture something like a service restart or service start of the system. So I wrote a plugin for Ansible, a callback that would let me do that, and it's called Influx Events, which I have. Again, this is all in the repo that I've published this code already. If any of you on machines want to take a look, it's going to be. If I can remember where I put it. Oh, yeah, it would help to be in the right project directory. Yeah, okay. So this is just using extension of what you can do in Ansible. So we just create a plugin here that is going to capture messages, events that are happening and report them. I'm not going to go through this line by line, but I just wanted to show you again, this is something I created as just a plugin, and I've now configured Ansible to use that plugin. It will be interesting, and this is definitely a good time when it could blow up. Oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, that would have been tragic had I forgot, because this is the whole point of the demo, is to show this part of it. All right, so if anyone that has a machine out wants to start pounding, keep pounding on it, the app, what we'll do here is, you see now it's only going between 2 and 3 right now, because it's taken 1 out of the HA proxy pool. Now 1's back in, but it's 1 and 3, 1 and 3, because it's working on 2. And at one point there, 2's back. If I pulled the playbook up, we could probably see that, is where it's at. Okay, it looks like it's done running already. So, no downtime, rolled out a new app. Great. Oh, what just happened? Over here. The response time has suddenly gone way through the roof. Our app's still running, but there's a lot of people that are pretty cranky. They don't have their 8-ball logic here and their 8-ball wisdom. So, you know, you're left at this point in scenarios like this that I've seen. The ops team, well, they maybe didn't even say anything because it didn't crash. That's all they really kind of care about. There wasn't an outage. The dev team doesn't know that they made a commit that things are kind of slow, or people are having a lot of trouble logging in and all. So the one other thing I added here, like I've said, I now have that callback that is reporting events. So what I do is I created up here something Grafana calls annotations. And what it does is it can mark in the graph when that event happened and overlay that against your metrics. So in this case here, if I roll over this here, come back. There we go. We see now that it is a play start, and it says performs rolling restart from playbook, and the name of the playbook started on, and it gives me, and this is probably a little thing I could fix, the host name, and that I'm the one that ran it. that got reported there, and it ran on that particular host. Probably need to fix that. It says like node 1, node 2, and uses the Ansible inventory names here. So minor bug thing I need to fix, but I think it gets the point across. Grafana has so many different knobs and things. I love how you can just like turn off the events. The other thing we see here are these yellow ones, which tell me that an 8-ball service was restarted on node 1. So we can look at node 1 here, which is green. We can see how it performed during that time. But more importantly, and this is when I talk about quality, we see that now with these events, we can see right away that, hey, when that event happened there, something was not so good about it and changed what happened here. I'm putting this into very technical terms because we're all technology people. I saw a great graph of this, and going back to the Foursquare people, they showed a graph like this, and it was new signups and page views on the main, like pricing and the main thing just go through the roof on a graph. And they said, so what happened here? And we were like, I don't know, like denial of service attack and whatever. And the guy put up an event line and it said Super Bowl ad, like a couple minutes before that. So again, I just want to emphasize that metrics aren't just about CPU load and memory. It can also be about those like business drivers, things in the UI, things that maybe your marketing team is doing that you may want to record. Ansible can't help you record those, but I think it's worth mentioning just while I'm talking on the topic of metric-driven development that I bring that up. Yes, sir.
Technically speaking, how do you get those annotations in there? Is that something you have to do through Grafana UI itself?
Yeah, that was something I configured you can build these dashboards yourself. As you saw me when I was fixing this, you can create the queries here and tweak all sorts of things with like the legend, the display. I mean, you could spend months playing around with that. But in the case of what you are asking, there's this under here, there's this thing, annotations. Darn, do I have another one to show? I think well, I'm not gonna do it here. Oh yeah, sure. Sorry. That I can do. I just don't want to bore everyone watching me try to type and remember. I'm not a Grafana expert. I'm not an InfluxDB. I work for Ansible. I've worked for Ansible a long time. I have no affiliation with those other companies. They're fine companies. I was just at a meetup for Influx Data last night, and I just went listening to all the cool stuff they have going on. Yes, so you wanted to see one. So this is, you give it a name, a color, where's the data source, you give it a query. Influx Data uses a SQL-like syntax as much as they can, but there are certain things that are different. So I put in the query and then map it to the title, the tags, and so that I can control what gets shown up in those rollovers. Okay.
So I was thinking of like trying to track like the routes and just reporting which ones are accessible or performance on them or something. Because it would work anymore because the data that they rely on is no longer source.
Right. My experiences with something like InfluxDB and Grafana, it's whatever you can think of collecting and measuring that has meaning to you, it can handle. And really, metrics and metric-driven development is a bit of an art form, and it's a bit of a unique snowflake type of scenario where what is useful to my company or my organization may not have any relevance to yours, and you have to determine what is it you're trying to do, what is it you want to measure, what matters to you. the most. Like I said, I was at a meetup last night that Influx Data was hosting, and they showed an app that was collecting from all these devices, measuring air quality and feeding them back in InfluxDB, and then they were able to, they have their own kind of Grafana-like tool called Telegraf that they were then mapping, and then they were able to cut and paste, or not cut and paste, but slice and dice it based on different parameters of the quality, the location, the things like that, and look for trends or sudden changes from there.
Yeah, I think now I can see how your Venn diagram makes sense now, because it really is exactly how it is.
Right. And the other key part, besides, from a software engineering standpoint, you're talking about quality. It's also about communication, because now both devs and ops can see the same data and map it differently to what helps them out, or to see the same thing together and share these type of dashboards more easily. I find that tools like, I don't have a whole lot of experience because I come from the dev side rather than the ops side, but there's usually you have to install this fat client, we need to pay for some license for your devs to even see what's happening in the app right now. Yeah, and it ends up then that then devs don't even bother. This now gives you a way to do this. I've seen companies that run Grafana in their library, in their lobby on a big screen, that as people walk by, they can see the stats of how the site's performing today. Actually, one of them I think was Gawker, that I was in there, and they had all type of stuff about how their articles are performing. I think they need to monitor how their company is performing at this point in time. But so one thing I also want to show you that I didn't get to really explore with Grafana, but I do have a plugin up in my repository, was that I'm collecting profiling information about my playbook runs. So I just went into the InfluxDB console and did a quick query here, but you can see where I also have one in there that is collecting how long things ran and what it was running and from where. So it was another thing I started exploring a little bit, but there are plenty of profiling tools out there, so I wasn't sure what I showed you with the rolling out a stack, so that all of you, if you want to experiment, you're interested in this, you now have a way to roll one out really quickly, I hope, to do that type of exploration yourself, and reporting the events and having the two work together. Like I said, another usage, there are tools out there that can monitor these metrics and say, hey, if the response time reaches this level, maybe I need to roll out more, or maybe I need to automatically send out an alert and revert a change. That's all up to you and your organization. There's, like I said, another tool I suggest looking into that really works well with the ones I've been showing you is one called Capacitor with a K out there. Yeah, so someone's familiar with it? I heard a yes. Oh, anyway. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to that one like I had hoped. Anyway, so these are, again, the repos. I need to do some cleanup myself. You'll see I've already filed a lot of issues against myself. If you have any suggestions or over time, as I especially evolve the MDD one, I hope to, in all my copious free time. Not a lot going on at Ansible these days. So, all right, just let me wrap this up really quickly, because and if there are any questions. So, I won't repeat all this because I think I've already repeated enough. Just what is MDD, why you want to use it, and I've started to just show even the glimmer of how a DevOps tool like Ansible can work with a metric stack in a couple of different forms. One last thing I want to say is in a month we're going to be back. The Ansible people are going to be back in town. If you're interested in Ansible, we have a code. You can get 25% off if you use RH Summit. RH Summit, yeah. So it'll be at the St. Francis right up here in Union Square. So I'll be there if that's not enough. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
I've been able to, part of it under the radar, implement a DevOps culture.
Yeah.
The developer's desktop to CI and production. But there's some detractors, some like people that came from Oracle that are kind of like hierarchy, non-collaboration oriented persons.
Yeah.
That disrupt kind of flow. And so I was thinking metrics is a way to kind of get out of the whole political social thing. And you say the metrics can't lie, here's the metrics. This is decision A, decision B, here's the cost. And the CEO can see that without understanding the technology and the issues, and then can be empowered to make that decision.
Right. And that type of empowerment and collection, to your point, is something that metrics give you. I don't know how many times I sat in large corporate organizations where they were guessing. They were really guessing. I have a feeling this is it. Well, do we have metrics that show us that? Did it show that what we just did actually improved things, or no, they're not. And that's the key part. And that goes back to my Alice in Wonderland slide there, is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So this is the key difference, and it's a subtle one, but it is a key difference between just monitoring and metrics and this type of metric-driven development. I'm just realizing I had my timer turned off, which was bad speaker form. That I'm a little bit over time. So I'm going to stop, but I'll be here. I just know everyone, our AV crew probably is ready to go home, and a lot of you might be ready to drink. So I am certainly ready to drink at this point. But thank you, everyone, for coming out. I'm happy to have survived this live demo experience. Thanks.